is the Unscripted Podcast. We finally made it, Chris.
Finally.
Yeah, like we're sponsored by Amazon now.
That's right.
Or what is it? Blue what?
Blue Origin.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what we can do there.
You didn't sound very convinced about that.
Hey, here's the first question. Do I get to play with these dudes?
You
Yeah,
can.
you can push whatever you want. There
We should have switched them around.
Man,
you go. Yeah, you can push whatever you want.
that is awesome.
So this is like this is Chris's favorite when he starts getting long-winded. Story time with Chris.
And this is when Bob tells a joke.
Oh man, this is awesome. You got it going on.
Yep. So it's a pleasure to have. We've got Wes Ayers here with us, and he's an engineer with Blue Origin. He's a Christian, and
He wore this suit on purpose.
that's right.
That's the real brains of the operation. What was clicking to make me put this jacket on, right?
That's right.
I was between this one and I have like a Pepto-Bismol pink one.
We wouldn't have let you on here with that one.
I understand. I
We'd
completely
have given you
understand.
like a Harley shirt or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we're recording this on a Sunday afternoon. Normally we're in here T-shirts and ball
Right.
caps, and we're just
Right.
anyways, you called us. We're just glad that you're with us. So Wes talked with our church some about social media and the Christian and
I think a good way we can talk about this is, today was the first day that we had hired our new security guy.
yeah, mm-hmm.
I reckon
Charlie.
Did you know him?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know, you're the chaplain over in Petal, and somebody said he was Petal police.
Yeah.
So that means he's over.
Yeah, I got some pedal guys coming to help us out.
So it's not him always.
And not him always, but he's on the schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. So why did we hire that guy for?
I mean, you may go into long detail thing, but
I need you to bunt and get on base here.
yeah, okay. So, church today needs security.
Yeah.
So we've had one for 5 years, armed security at church, and we still do.
How many? When you was the police, how many church shootings stuff did you work?
Oh, I never worked a church shooting.
How many church service craziness? Like something's going crazy in church right now. Did you ever have to work any cases like that?
Mm-mm.
So why do we hire a shooting guy? I mean a shooting guy. Really, he's the guy that will get shot at.
He's the guy that gets shot at first. That's what we hired.
Yeah.
Charlie, you be quick.
Quick on the draw.
So why did we hire him for?
Yeah, well, I mean, why did we have church security period here? Yeah, and so our church has gotten so heavily involved with helping people that, and we help people that are of all walks of life and have different problems, and really we had
Serious challenges
that were made, and one of the people that we'd helped and taught the gospel to had, there were some threats and some real things that we're worried about back 5 years ago, right before I came. They kept all that stuff hid from me. They didn't want me to know. They had hired church security between the time that I had started talking with the shepherds to the time that I came to visit, and they never let me know.
You being a cop probably helped out there.
Yeah.
Then.
So they never.
Then they heard you preaching like, "This is the guy right here."
I guess so. But yeah, so we've had security, and that's the best thing. If there's going to be a problem, you want to.
But we've never had a problem.
You want to prevent it first.
But we've really never had a problem.
Right.
I mean, sizable problem. But there's a serious danger that's in our homes.
Yeah.
There's a serious threat that's in our homes that will absolutely manifest itself if it goes unchecked.
And it's in your kids' pockets.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's what we really want to talk about is understanding that so if your kids are failing math, you'll make them get in there and, right now with Liam, I don't feel like he's where he needs, my middle son, I don't feel like he's where he needs to be with his math. So we're doing it in the morning, and I'm not just cramming it down his throat, but we're doing it in the morning, then he can take a break, and then in the afternoon we're going to do some more, right? We're going to revisit some of these things. Well, it's because he needs to be there. Well, the challenge is that we see those things as needing.
Oh, it's important.
As a necessity to be successful in life, right? They don't understand how important math is. I still don't really understand what a present participle is. You got me?
Yeah. Can you explain that?
No, because I could talk about math for a while and sound real smart. Perfect trinomials, or something like that. But we're not going to get there with present participles, and I'm not even sure that's a word. Okay, but. We impress these things on our kids because we want them to be successful in life and these things. And yet there's this little demon that sticks around in every one of our kids' pockets. And you talked about some of those statistics from it, from just the dangers of social media. So kind of rehash some of those things just real quick, and then I want to get to some how we can mitigate that risk in our home.
Yeah, so when you think about social media inside of everybody's got access to it. I mean, there's no age restriction, there's no age limitations, there's no access limitation. If you can connect to the internet, you can connect to social media. You don't even have to have an active profile to be able to search something on a social media website. You can just
You just mean bird dogging.
Yeah, you can just absolutely. You can just show up, show out, and do your thing.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the biggest dangers to it. That's when it's the hardest to track, and we can talk about that in just a second. But the purpose of today was for us to kind of see just how much of a hold social media has on young people.
Mm-hmm. They're measuring suicides in first graders.
Right. It's insane to think about the fact that.
How old's a first grader?
So we have a first
6
grader.
and 7.
7, yeah.
Just think about that.
Yeah.
My 7 he's 8 now, but my 7-year-old identified as an airplane most of the days.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the same thing with our 7-year-old Chapman. He's, I guarantee you, my mom sent me a picture of him earlier. He had gotten some nunchucks after lunch. So I guarantee you he's going to go home, put his ninja costume on, and be a ninja for the
he's
rest
a
of the
Ninja
day.
Turtle,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
With his pajamas on.
With his pajamas on.
Right.
I can't imagine.
Cowboy boots.
And cowboy. The dude loves his cowboy
Yeah.
boots.
All kids do.
I can't imagine, a 7-year-old being under the kind of stress where they're gauging statistics based on their suicide rate.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like we're at the point we can measure it,
Right.
So it's not like, the number of people that had on pink shorts that ran a stop sign on the 3rd day of the month.
Yeah.
You got what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to dig to try to get a statistic.
Yeah, so we're at the point now where we can measure statistically how many suicides are happening in first graders, and so now we've talked about, like you this morning, you talked about the percentage of cyberbullying. Like you talked about cyberbullying, I define that term because I'm not quite sure what I understand that term to be.
So cyberbullying is anything that you can do, or anything that any type of we used to call it pick on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we called it when I was growing up, and I'm significantly younger than both of you guys, so I don't know what.
I'm only 28.
How old do you think we are?
You identify as a 28-year-old. But so what they identify cyberbullying as.
Who's they?
So experts
Okay.
in social media, statistical type fields. I shared with the church this morning. I'm no expert. We just try to find hard data and talk to people, and
That's all you got to go on.
gauge people.
We go on our opinions, and we'll be back where we're at.
Absolutely. So we try to find it, and so what the experts call or refer to as cyberbullying is any type of negative impact that you can have on another person's emotion.
Okay.
That's how they identify as cyberbullying. Anything that you can do to negatively impact another's emotion.
Is that necessarily always a bad thing?
I would. So I grew up in the country.
Yeah,
right?
we were talking about some of that stuff at lunch.
Yeah,
we're like we pick on our own kids.
That's
but
right,
we're not really bullying.
But I don't think it's always bad to let people know that you're wrong.
And you need some thicker skin.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So to me, it's hard to quantify, because we're in the age now where we live in, where everybody gets to whine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're at, where everybody gets to cry about whatever they want to, and they're right for crying about it. And so I don't know what, we we got this homeschool class on Thursday. I told Bob this story. Maybe Bob was there. I don't remember, but this was so funny to me that I keep picking on Carson and Aiden about it constantly. And they were they're making their own belt knives, or Thursday morning kids are. It's about half a dozen of them, right? Homeschool kids. They're designing, machining, making the fixturing and everything.
Wes has learned real quick. We believe in pistols, now knives, and picking on our kids.
Right. And so
My kind of people.
All he had to do was figure out what the difference between 150 and 162 was to know how much they had to take off of this piece. And they've been working on this thing for so long that they can't even figure this out. And I heard Carson say, I think it's 12. Or I know, he said, I think we need to ask your dad. And he's like, no, we don't need to ask Dad. And so he goes over there, and Carson's like, well, we need to. And I was like, Aiden, He's like, Daddy, what is 150 minus 160? There's like 5 calculators in the shop, right? Because sometimes I can't figure it out either, right? But they come over here to ask me, and they're like, well, Dad, what's the difference between 150 and 162? And I was like, what is it, Aiden? He's like, I don't know. It's like, you need to know what this is, son. and Carson's like, ooh, looking at him. And I said, Carson, what is it? He's like, oh, Mr. Chris, I don't know. I don't do math very good. And so we're just figuring out 12, right?
Right.
And so I pick on them all the time about that because they're so funny.
Yeah.
But some of that is like, a little bit of it's like, y'all need to toughen up a little bit, right? You need to be able to work under pressure, right?
Yeah.
So when we say cyberbullying, we mean something that has offended somebody and they have chose this as an offense to them, right?
And I think too, and I fall into the category of parent. Parents drive the bus on a lot.
You don't
of
fall into that category.
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm just a dude.
No. You don't fall into it, is what he's saying. Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. But a lot of it's driven by how parents respond to this.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's driven by how parents influence their children.
Right.
And so Bob and I were talking at lunch. I pick on my kids, and
that's why you have them. Have
Right.
reason to have them.
yeah. So my oldest one, Pearson, that's right. Take the garbage out. It's it's always unique because my 11-year-old, he's or 10-year-old, he'll be 11 in May. He's very sensitive. He wants to make sure everybody's happy. It doesn't take much to kind of sway his opinion or anything like that. He's developing, a sense of strength, and he's getting to a certain spot. But for the most part, he's going to do everything he can to try to make other people happy. Right? That's his goal. Now, my 7-year-old, he's right the opposite. He's like, hey, if you want to take this out behind the woodshed, that's fine with me. Let's go. So we have 2 totally different kids, and they respond differently. I think that's where we as parents. We have a lot of influence on this deal too because, and we'll talk about it. I hope we'll talk about it a little bit more. But we can control the cyberbullying aspect for our kids.
All right, so because I was trying to figure it out, have I ever even been cyberbullied before?
Right.
And I wasn't too sure that I had, and I suppose that I'm in a lot of these engineering machinist groups and stuff like that where. You may offer a suggestion, and then there's Redneck Bobby that comes on there, and he's like, "Well, the reason why you think that's because you're a moron,"
Yeah.
and or just some completely over the top, like instead of like, that's just not a good way to do that. And will help me understand why, right? There's a and so I don't even know that I've ever technically been cyberbullied before,
Right, and I think the object is, and the experts use this term a lot. And we see it everywhere with every type of situation. But they use the expression "handle with care." Mm-hmm. So that's how you're supposed to respond. That's how you're supposed to engage. Now, again, if somebody just comes after me, well, the human element of me says, "Well, I'm gonna come right back at you."
right?
Well, there are so many people that don't operate that way.
Yeah, most people don't. They're keyboard warriors,
right? So they're gonna sit behind a screen. They're gonna type whatever they think. They're gonna type whatever they, and the biggest majority of cyberbullying comes from a place where they're trying to make up for something that they feel is
hurt people.
Right. It's an inadequacy in their life. It's an imperfection in their life. So they're going to attempt to attack people based on those things that are happening inside their own head.
Yeah, that's why this Ephesians 4, and you fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord.
Absolutely.
And it's not, like
that's
my wife.
6:4. I mean,
What did I say?
5. You said Ephesians 4.
Yeah, well, I meant verse 4, chapter 6.
Yeah.
And
We knew what you meant.
well, I'm glad Bob corrected me.
But yeah, it's up to us fathers,
Yeah. So Jessica, like sometimes when I'm goading the boys along, to fight with each other or whatever it is, she's like, "You're provoking them to wrath." Really, she's just picking at me,
Sure.
but she's using that verse out of context. That's not what it's talking about. It's not talking. What it is that I don't put them on a pathway that's going to help them turn out a certain way. Right. Well, here's the challenge with so much of this stuff is that, they're pouring. I mean, statistically, you can look at how many hours, the average person spends on social media a day or a week or a year, or, those numbers get staggering when you start compounding them by over the scale of a lifetime. And you realize that those things are directly influential to the way they dress, the way they look, the way they act, the way they talk, all those things. I mean, like, we had this game we played. Bob cheated so bad Friday night. We played this game, and Colby, one of our deacons, he was like, kids, when they talk about something being good, they say it's a drip. I don't even know what that word means. I didn't know what it meant. I wouldn't even know I wouldn't even know that. I legitimately remember when I was like 8 or 10 years old, the first pair of Nikes a boy I had at school had on, and we were discussing how to say the word. Like, what are those shoes called?
Right. Yeah.
Are they Nikes? Are they Nike? Like, what is this word of these shoes you're wearing right here? Well, all this stuff is directly. So if we don't guard our kids against it, then they're going to be. If we send them to Rome, we can't be surprised if they come back acting like Caesar.
Right.
So how do we mitigate those risks then?
I think a lot of it's going to have to come down to, and there's one thing that I did want to share with you guys, and I wanted to share it this morning. There's an alarming statistic, and I don't have the numbers with me right here. I wish I did. I should have brought my notes. But there's an alarming statistic out there that talks about the amount of social media usage that you can have in comparison to your own personal mental health.
Say that again now.
So there is a statistic that talks about the percentage of time you spend on social media in comparison to your own mental health.
So there's a tipping point where it starts getting you jacked up.
It gets you in a weird spot. Mm-hmm. Mentally, it really can mess with you because you're fed so many things, and it goes back to what we're talking about here in Ephesians. It leads to so many different things. You're being fed so many different options. You're being fed so many different ideas and topics and discussions, and you hear what people say, you see what people say, and it begins to influence your thought process. It begins to influence your behavioral patterns. It has so much grasp on it. There's my kids are huge on Spider-Man, right? They love Spider-Man. So there's one Spider-Man movie, we were watching it where, I think it's Venom, and like he'll grab a hold of you and then he starts converting you. I don't know. I'm not up to Star Wars, but it makes me think about this kind of thing. Once we get our minds set in a certain direction by whatever influence it was, it pulls us in that direction. So I think it comes down to us as parents, as guardians, as people who are – we talked about influence this morning during our worship hour. When we talk about how we're going to influence people, we first have to do a self-check, make sure that we're
What do you mean by
positive.
that?
So I had a teenager one time ask me, she was like, my mom told me I needed to check myself. I was like, before you wreck yourself? And she did not catch the reference, but I thought it was hilarious. I was like, dad joke 101. But she was like, Mom,
they start before you have kids, by the way.
So I think that when we talk about where we are at and how we need to positively influence other people, I think it comes down to our relationship with God. Mm-hmm. I think that's... Fellas, I know so many people who I honestly believe their life would just be better if they would just surround themselves with Christians.
Amen. Yeah.
Who do you know that wouldn't benefit from that?
There are so many folks that they just I don't know if they're afraid of Christianity or if they're afraid of the church or what the case might be.
Well, I can tell you that I've been studying with a couple for the last 2 weeks, and I asked them, I said, what, they were so timid when they started showing up that they would sit close to each other. They would like slide their chairs close to each other. And I said, why do you do that for? And, Chris likes to ask the elephant in the room questions.
Right.
And so why do you do that for? And so they both said the same answer with 50 different words. And what it was that we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how it was going to be when we got here. We don't know anything, and we're scared that we're going to feel stupid. And so we just stuck close to what we know. That's what it translated everything they said. And I said, do you feel that way now? Well, no. Why? Well, because they've gained knowledge. They've gained understanding from being around. I mean, I tongue-in-cheek pick on Bob about cheating Friday night. It was no cheat. It was just us having a good time. And, we were all together playing a silly little word game,
And Chris remembers that a fool vents all his feelings. Proverbs 29:11. He remembers that too.
Bob spent all that time looking that verse up just so he could say it.
I actually just came across it. I was looking for something else.
Yes.
You missed it. And so let's take a break, all right? And then we come back from our break. We want to talk about how we put the meat on the bones, all right?
Sounds good.
Life in general is about decisions. Every decision that you make has consequences, and you're tethered to every single one of them. Jesus gives us this awesome opportunity that you don't have to make all the decisions in your life all on your own. You see, he invites you to come to him, to learn from him. Jesus gives us this perfect example, and he tells us in Matthew chapter 11, he says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm meek and gentle in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, my burden is light." We have so much to learn from Christ, and he gives us this example of saying, if you really want to learn from me, take my yoke. You see, yokes were used back in Bible times to put two animals together to pull a load or to pull a cart or to plow ground. And you would put an ox together, or you would put two mules together, and they would pull the load together. And that's what Christ offers for us, is he's offering to pull the load for us. Christ invites us to come to him, and we're to be his followers, disciples, learners, people who have yoked in with him. And he builds a community around us called the church. The church is to be made up of people who God have looked at their hearts. You see, the world wants to paint a picture of everything that would divide us. The church has painted a picture of the things that unite us. That Christ, he builds this community that when we've yoked in with other people, they may be different from us, but we can learn from each other. What a beautiful thing that it is when we can have difficult conversations. There's no conversation that the church can't have. And that's what Christ wants from us, is he wants community that's strong, that's yoked in together, that learns from each other. And most importantly, that learns from Jesus. And he invites us to come, take, learn, and find.
So then help us understand, as parents and as church leaders and as people that really have been entrusted with this, great responsibility, help us understand then, because obviously, like you said, you're not an expert, but you sure got your hand in the cookie jar pretty tight. And so help us understand from a realistic perspective what measures we can put in place to mitigate risk in our homes.
So any child that has an iPhone, right, you can check their weekly screen time. I don't know if you've seen this, but you get a weekly screen report. I get it, and you can see how much screen time they're seeing. You can limit that inside of that very thing that they send you. You can limit how much time they're on their screen per day. That's, for me, that's starting point number one.
Okay, so how do you do that? Do you have to have like the same iTunes account, or how do you do that? Because okay, so if I've got a 14-year-old, which my 14-year-old, his phone sleeps beside me, not because I don't trust him, because I don't trust Satan.
Right.
And so there's positive things that he can do with that phone. He makes devotionals on it. He saves them. He texts a friend. He can do these things and hopefully lead somebody to the gospel.
Pictures of Mr. Chris stuck in the mud.
Yeah, you're shot. Yeah, the duck camp.
Yeah,
but so there's there's positive things, but then also like, okay, so what if I set that timer for my 14-year-old, but then he's got his own account under his email. I've got those passwords and stuff, but why can't he just go in there and just change that timer?
Well, there's a little bit of trust factor that you've got to give. Okay, so one of the things that I found in youth ministry was, I believe firmly in holding young people accountable. I believe in you holding me accountable, me holding you accountable. I think it's just we all work together to do that. But they've got to have a little teeth in the game, and this is when parental advisement can come into play, and you just cut the thing off altogether. But you set these guidelines, and they can move them around, but you can go back and check up on them. Like we talked about certain things this morning, like the photo vault, things like that you have to have a passcode to get into. You can go in and change your screen restrictions at any time. There's no code or anything like that to be able to change that or have to change that. They can go in.
Yeah,
and
but
change
obviously
those
if they're reported at the end of the week, there's more time. Then it's like, okay, he cheated.
right, and you can actually go into the preferences of that, and you can receive their.
Okay.
But there's
screen
no
time report.
manipulation to that, so it's hard
Right.
data.
It's there.
So they can't say, "I want you to qualify this as screen time."
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. I mean, it's not going to. Now, there is a cool thing about it. You can tell what they've spent their screen time on.
Right. So it's not like when you drive your car at 5 miles an hour, so you don't hear the ding ding beat seatbelt deal.
That's right, yeah.
It has to be over a certain speed.
Right.
So you can't. The way it quantifies data is absolute.
Yeah, there's no way to misconstrue the numbers. There's no way to falsify the numbers or make them look like misremember. Yeah. There's no way to do that. It's hard. It's there. It's dedicated, and you can actually go back and the way to do it kind of slips my mind right now. But you can actually go back and compare their weekly screen reports from the previous week to this week, and you can kind of see what they've improved on or what they've kind of indulged in a little bit more. You can see those things.
It's going to be hard to do those, though, right? You know what I mean? Because, like, for example, my phone, it's set up to, when it's charging, for the screen to be on, so I don't have to unlock it, so I can just talk to it.
Right.
So that would be burning screen time, technically, right?
Now, are you on Team iPhone?
No, of course
Okay.
not.
Well, see, now,
Superior intelligence.
it's a problem. It's a
Well,
problem.
I understand. You
Probably
see what I live with.
But
That's
so
why Bob had to cheat.
so iPhone, you won't run into that issue. But yeah, I would think that you could probably, and I'm not real up to date on the lesser intelligence of the two softwares, but I think you look at, you look at. You can look at certain things. You can look at certain data. You can pull certain things, and I would imagine that, and that my iPad actually does it. It's idle screen time, so it may fall into that category. I don't know. That's something I'll need to look at to get.
So,
you
what
some
is the
more
biggest
numbers.
challenge pushback you get from parents then?
Oh man, where do you want me to start?
The biggest. Sorry, I didn't answer the question. Ask the question right.
The biggest. I guess what you're at the biggest. I'm going to say it's that.
If you don't know, don't answer it.
Well, I'm trying to think of the best way to word it. The biggest pushback that we get from parents is they want their kids to be able to live their life. Okay, I don't really know what that means. I'll just be honest with you. When somebody tells me I want them to be able to live their life, well, they're 8. Okay, what does that mean?
Do you still make them go to bed?
Yeah. So
Do you still have to tell them to brush their teeth?
right, and
Clean your room.
clean your room, change your undergarment, your underpants, whatever you got to change your socks. That's a big one in our house, by the way. I'll chase this rabbit. With 2 boys,
Yeah.
they don't like to change their socks.
Like, bro, get back in your shower and wash under your arms.
Wash the
Right.
armpits,
You still stink when
fellas.
you got out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the biggest pushback we have is we don't really want to take these numbers. We don't really want to hear this data, and we don't really want to look into this because we want our children to live their life.
Well, here's something that I think about is 2 things with that. And I want you to talk about some Snapchat stuff too.
Yeah.
But 1 Timothy 5, and this is in context. He's talking about you taking care of your family as a widow. If your dad passed away, you take care of your mom or whatever.
But that wouldn't be just for a widow.
Not just for a widow. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a familial responsibility.
Exactly. And so, familia, he's talking about family. It's a family.
Familial.
Yeah,
Right.
So I'm just used to you speaking Spanish all the time. But so verse 8 of 1 Timothy 5, he's like, but if anyone does not provide for his own, especially for those of his household, he's denied the faith and worse than an unbeliever. And so I understand. So I look at that verse, and then we've been doing, as a congregation, we do these characteristics, and we've been looking at self-control. And one of our weeks this month has been on Adam and Eve in Genesis and the sin. And so you think about when sin entered the world, that when Satan comes and tempts Jesus, when she looks at this fruit, she saw, that it was good for food, pleasant to the eye, and a tree desirable to make one wise. Well, that's everything. It's got sin wrapped all up in it. Yeah. And that's what this thing does. And so, I look at, I'm an iPhone person, but the back of the iPhone's got an apple bit out of it.
Yeah.
It's enticing. It's something and so there's, yes, can we use this thing for positive things? Absolutely. I have to remind my kids and my wife, I'm working on my phone right now. Right. Like, I'm not just over here playing some Candyland game or something stupid. I'm sending emails to people, or I'm encouraging somebody, or whatever it might be.
Right.
And or I'm having a Bible study right now with a college student, with my phone. And so sometimes you have to remind that. But that's why it's a powerful thing when your kids walk in the living room and they see you with your Bible in your lap.
Right.
Because
instead of your phone.
There's no question, you know. And so
your phone's connected to everything in the world, including God, but your Bible's only connected to God.
That's right. Yeah. And so we understand in 1 Corinthians that with the temptation, God is going to make a way of escape. But what if the escape for my teenager or preteen is, what if their escape is their mom and their daddy? Their escape out of that temptation. Mm-hmm. One statistic that I looked at that was most recent was that the average age of a child who first begins to watch pornography is 11 years old now. And so, and yet we're sending this thing to bed with them every night. Mm-hmm. Thank you for what you said today to our parents. The
first two websites.
Yeah, they're pornographic websites.
I figured it was Google. I mean, I just figured Google, Google.com would have been the number one website.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, 11 years old, so it's a tree desirable, it's enticing. And then the next thing is okay, God's going to make the way of escape, but me as a parent, I have to provide for my own family, whether it's financially, spiritually, protection, all those things. If I don't, then I've denied the faith. So it's a real challenge. And so
how do we walk backwards on it?
Yeah.
Right? So now we got, we've got the evils of of social media, right? But like Bob said, it's good there too, right? So if we decide we're going to let our kids do it, then how do we not keep our kids away from it, but keep Satan away from them?
So, and I'm glad you worded it like that, Chris, because there are so many people that we talk to that just say all social media is bad, scrap it all, don't let your kids have it, nothing. I'm going to tell you, some of the greatest outreach I ever experienced in my time in ministry were kids that saw the things that we were doing. Kids would post it on Instagram. Kids would see it, and they would want to be a part of it. But for us, every social media app has safeguards put in place, right? I'm going to tell you right up front, they're trash. You can get around anything. It's like signing a liability waiver.
Yeah, it's like fighting with your wife. I need to fast forward to the end and hit accept to get over this
just
as quick
go,
as I can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right, and be done. So we get into that a lot with our social medias, but I think the first and most important thing we have to do is we have to have some sort of open dialogue with our children.
How do you do that? Because I tell you, like having a teenager, it gets a lot more difficult.
It does, and I think it's going to be. There's nobody that outside of God. There's nobody that understands your child better than you do. Mm-hmm. You understand their struggles. You understand their strengths. And I think sitting down with them and saying, okay, here are the potential dangers. Just be very, very real with them. Mm-hmm. Just let them see.
So when they drop the ball, don't beat them to death.
Right? I think that's the exact
so that they're not
approach.
scared to come to you with an issue.
That's right.
Exactly.
With grace.
Exactly.
I remember. So when Carson came to me for the first time, I think I don't remember if he was 12 or 13, but I allowed him to have Netflix in his room, but he could not watch anything that was past like a PG-13 or whatever. Right. And there was a trust thing with that. And he came to me and he said, "Dad, there's something I really got to talk to you about." And I was like, "Okay." And this is like 9:30 at night, so it's like, oh my goodness, what's this going to be or whatever? Right. And like he sat there for a second, and he just started like shaking, and he started crying, and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, "I didn't know this was going to happen." And he was watching some sci-fi movie or whatever, and it showed some woman's breast, and I mean, he was tore up. I mean, I almost tear up thinking about it right now, just because it was how tender his heart was about it. Mm-hmm. But he came to me, and I mean, that was the most two thing, it's like, okay, where's litmus test? It's like sometimes with your kids, it's like, I just want them to get a grip,
Right,
in life or whatever. And then, when they come to you tenderhearted about this, and this was, what the movie was is this boy and this girl or this woman and her son were running from aliens or something, and then clothes get stripped off, and she's in a bad situation, is desperate, and she's standing there. And why in the world they're going to show that? I have no clue why. But he's just
you know why?
Yeah, and so he's so tenderhearted about it. But like, it just opened up something. It built a. I guess there was just we grew from that as a father and a son, and it's like, how can we grow from that whenever it's something negative? But it's kind of like, I guess a lot of things can happen like that in life, but.
So how do you deal with because each one has its inherent dangers, right? I mean, it's going to be evolutionary. Like, when you're talking this morning, I'm like, Snapchat, that's the little ghost one, right?
Right.
And the reason why I have never and will never download TikTok, the primary reason, it's owned by the Chinese government.
Right.
They want nothing to do but the downfall of America and anything American they're going to be against. I'm just, no matter what we do, and then we're handing it to them. This is the way I live my life. This is what we do. This is you can hear. You want to study in the culture of America and how to defeat us? We will actually package it and hand it to you.
They see your face. They see your interests. They see your hobbies. They
Everything. Exactly right. So they're just, all it is just, either way, that's a sermon there. But so how do you inherently evolve with them, right? Because I mean, like you talked about the little photo vaults and all that stuff, and like there was one of them just looked like a calculator. I was like, I think I got an app. It looks like that.
Yeah.
And so I went and looked at it. You know?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that so we're going through this with Pearson right now. He's 10. He wanted Snapchat. All of his buddies have Snapchat. So we said, okay, on one condition. We have to approve everybody that you talk to, that you send pictures back and forth with. So literally the people that he Snapchats with are me, my mother, and there are 3 people in his age group at church that have it. And so they have their own little Snapchat, these 3 kids do, and they send Bible pictures to each other, which is cool.
Yeah.
They're 10, 11 years old. I mean, it's cool that they do that. But I think the thing that catches us off guard the most is how quickly it can evolve into something really bad. Because, like I said, there's really no protection. There's really no safeguard. It's about being able to know that if our kids feel comfortable coming, just like what you were talking about, if our kids feel comfortable coming to us and saying, hey, this is what I've got going on. So Pearson, he's 10, right? He had TikTok. Mm-hmm. Now, I had every privacy setting on it. He could not upload videos. He could not view certain people's videos. You can do all those things through TikTok. But he come to me and he said, Dad, I'm taking my TikTok down. I said, okay, why? And he said, I just don't feel safe with it. I don't feel comfortable. Now, as a 10-year-old coming to me and saying I don't feel comfortable, as a dad, that makes me, that's very scary. I mean, he doesn't feel comfortable out there. But I think it's that conversation of, okay, I'm going to give you some freedom. I'm going to give you some trust. I'm going to allow you to make. One of the greatest things my mom ever let me do was fall flat on my face. And
so, wait a minute now.
Come back around.
Yeah, come on back on that one. What do you mean by that? So we will let our kids make mistakes?
I think it's okay to let our kids make mistakes.
What kind of mistakes you talking about?
I'm talking about.
There's no drunk.
Yeah.
There's never been a drunk that didn't take his first drink.
I think we have to. I think we have to let our children experience life. And I think when we try to take everything away from them and don't give them the opportunity to learn and to grow, because they can hear me talk about it, they can hear you, they can hear McKinley, our preacher, talk about all of these things that we shouldn't do and should be doing, and all of those things. But I don't think we should be at a point where we coddle them so much that they don't understand that real life happens.
So, I'm still having a hard time with this one.
Well, Wes, like the first thing that you said, like Chris asked you this, he said, what's the number one pushback you have? And you said, parents say, we think that our kids should experience life.
And So I think that when you think we experience life, and so from my perspective, I think people think that we come at them telling them that they're parenting wrong. So immediately walls are up and they say, I'm not going to tell my kid what they can and cannot do. I don't think that's the proper way to do it. I don't think you can look at them and say, okay, here are your boundaries. There are none. You have no rules.
But when they fail at math, we make them go do their math.
Sure, absolutely.
And so if our kids aren't, so I'm trying to back up, I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire on this because I want to understand it. This Bible is written so that we don't make mistakes. And so we would never have to make, essentially if we did what this Bible said, we would never have to make a mistake. Now I understand that we're going to, right?
Yeah.
So then in my mind, what we need to do is principle learning. Right. So like Bob's talking about self-control. This month's lesson is on our characteristic is on self-control. So we're trying to put in place, this idea of self-control so we can let them make mistakes on small scale with self-control, right? With, how much time you play the video game every day, how much time you fish, how much time you, whatever the case may be. And then when they don't, we pull them back from that. But there's certain mistakes that we can't let our kids make.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when you look at the avenue of social media, there are conversations that you can have and you can say, you're not going to be involved in this, you're not going to be involved here. And that comes into how we can protect them. And there are ways to do that. And there's a laundry list of things that you can find. You can research on how to protect and how to set up certain barriers, certain things you have access to. You can block those things. There's a blocker that you can put on movies now. The name of it escapes me, but it's
BitAngel.
Yeah, that. So you can do everything you possibly can to help your children. My point is, when they make mistakes, it's our opportunity and it's our responsibility to let them know that it's not the end.
Yeah, corrective action.
It's how we're going to improve from here.
Yeah, we used to do this constantly. Yeah. I worked for for a company. We built reactors for the Navy. If something got messed up and you had to go see the admiral, you didn't go in there and with your handbook of I'm sorry's. You went in there with your handbook of like, this is what happened.
Sure.
This is what we're going to do to improve the process. This is how we're going to make sure that this, these are the things that we're putting in place so that we do not have, you're talking, 3, 5, 10, 15, 40, $75 million mistakes here.
Right.
And so that's a long walk and a hard talk. Yeah. And so
and part of that too, like when Wes made that comment, Chris, the hair on the back of his neck stood up like a bulldog. He's like, what you mean, Wes? Like your mom allows you to fall on your face. But like Chris, you do the same thing with principle. Like because like in your machine shop class, you're like, I'm gonna let these boys go through this, and I'm gonna let them fail at this.
Yeah, and that's why we needed to clarify it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, I'm not just gonna go, okay, I'm gonna put the whiskey in the refrigerator, and then let the kids find it, let them fall on their face. And
I'm gonna bookmark a porn site on their phone.
Right? But no, kids need to understand that we have to overcome our shortcomings, and so
we have to help them build that in.
That's right.
We have to help them like learn how to work through when I fall, because there's a point where Daddy, Aiden's 13, he's going on 14, so I got 4, 5, 6 years, whatever, with him. And
then, when he goes off to college, I don't want him to call me and go, "Hey, Dad, do I need? Hey, I got to make this decision.
Can I stay up till 10 o'clock tonight?"
Yeah, right. I want him to do that, but I want him to have. The hardest thing for a parent is having them in the nest, but training them to be prepared to leave the nest and fly. And it's a hard balance for us as dads, is going, how much struggle do I put in their life in the nest to make them to where they can get out and fly? And because, let's just face it, right now there's some mamas who are going with their kids to college.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, they're setting them up for failure.
Absolutely. Helicopter parents, ain't that the term?
That's right. Yeah. And that's something I'm on my wife all the time about, is that, she's very protective about things. And I'm like, listen, no. Mm-hmm. Like, he's 14. He's going to have his phone with him. If he gets in trouble, he can call you and he can do this or whatever. He's got to have these things, and
isn't it important to know your kids too?
That's right.
Like, you got 4 and I got 3 and you got 2. So that's, what, 4, 3? That's, 9 kids altogether, right? So you think about the personality dynamics. You're talking about your 10-year-old and your 7-year-old. Well, like our house, we have this rule. Jessica and I, we've never said bad boy when we got boys. So we've never said bad boy. We always say bad decision because we want them to start weighing that the reason you're in the boat you're in now is your decision that you made. Mm-hmm. And so what that has required in us as parents is that sometimes one decision that one makes and the same decision that the other one may make, it's our responsibility. What I mean by that is, like, if one says, I'm not going to do it for this reason, and the other one could give the same wording, but his motivation is different behind that wording. And so it's important for me to understand my kids so that then I can help them understand that that's not the reason why you need, like Aiden was going to go, my oldest one was going to go, he's like, no, I'm not going to go rabbit hunting this weekend. I'm going to stay here. Well, then one of his buddies come over to the house. He's like, I'm going rabbit hunting, when he's getting ready to leave. Well, that's fine if Aiden wants to go rabbit hunting. I don't care if he changes his mind and don't want to come to our game night. That's fine if he wants to go rabbit hunting. Fine. He's still going with Christians, 2 of our elders. He's going with 2 of our elders. So what better environment for him to go rabbit hunting in? But I didn't want Aiden to make that decision to go rabbit hunting because his friend influenced him. Mm-hmm. So I wanted him to make that decision to go rabbit hunting because, hey, I want to be with our 2 of our elders. I want to be with my buddy, whose daddy's a deacon. That's the motive. I didn't want him to be influenced by. So that's where I have to understand the decision making that they came to with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And let me just go on record and say that I don't think you purposely. I'm not promoting that you purposely set your kids up for failure.
No, and I was helping you through this is what I was doing. But let me just tell you, Chris asked the tough questions. Okay.
Well, and that's fine. I don't hate tough questions. I just. My approach to parenting is going to be different than yours. It's going to be different than yours. I never want to set my kids up for failure.
Amen.
But I do want to allow them to learn. And, my job is to protect them and put a hedge around them. And if sometimes they step out from behind those hedgerows, I've got to be there to help and encourage and like you say, corrective action. How do we get better from that? The main pushback that we have, just to give a little more detail, is they say, I want my kids to live their life. But the underlying cut to that is, but we don't want any repercussions from it.
Right.
We want them to do what they do, say what they say, and you can't say anything to them about it.
Yep.
That's just what they do.
Hey, so I do want to take just a very quick break, but then I do want to come back and I want to ask you, even if we're just on here for 3 minutes, about some stuff just about Snapchat right quick.
Yeah, let's do
okay.
it.
All right.
The last couple of years feels like we're cast in a movie, but we don't understand which part we play in it. It seems like the line between who's the hero and the villain have been blurred. We thought by now it would come to its happy ending. I suppose that's because we're looking at life like it's a short sitcom, when really, it's an epic tale. We really just needed to look down the road farther, and who we are right now doesn't define us. So who's really been directing our path then? It's time we consider the source. Living in the right now, I'll never see what I can become. We see the Lord as our director, and He's weaving an epic tale where we all play an important part. My short-term losses, He turns into long-term gains. You've listened to all the rhetoric, and you've tried all the fads, and nothing worked. Because all those things were focused on the momentary. It's time to have an eternal vision. And your story can start with us today and finally become the new you in 22.
So
We're back. Sorry, I had to get one in.
Waited the whole time.
that was good. I wasn't expecting that. Ben looked at us like, "What's going on?" Ben can't hear the laughing.
He can't hear the laughing
in the headphones. Yeah,
That's funny.
He will when he edits it. So just right quick, I think this is a challenge. So Snapchat, I essentially take a picture, I send it to somebody else, and then it'll delete it automatically, right?
Right.
And
what's that mean? So I take a picture of a fish I caught, send it to you.
Yeah.
Then what?
and then it's gonna delete.
Is it like this is your mission? If you choose to accept it, 30 seconds, it's going to destruct, or how does it work?
It's just so I'll show you when we leave here. But you take a picture. Like I can take a picture of Ben standing right there. Then I can.
He's a hunk Uncle burning love.
So then I send it to. I can send it to Bob. All right. Bob opens it on his phone. He's got a short window of time to be able to look at it, and then it disappears.
So if you I accidentally open things all the time.
So the way that I understand is it's made for what was Snapchat made for? So that people could sext, right?
Right. That's exactly what it's developed for.
So some girl could take a picture of her naked body, send it to a boy.
And then he couldn't send it to half the school.
And he couldn't send it half, and it'll notify her if he screenshots it.
Well, then it's the bag is. I mean, it's gone then, right? You know what I mean? Like if he screenshots it, then
he's got it.
It's got it.
Yeah, he's got it.
But she's notified that he screenshots it.
What does that matter?
So then she gets to question him. She's like,
"Hey,
oh
no, accidents."
Yeah,
I didn't mean to send you my whole body.
Right. So if you're sending a dude a naked picture of yourself, he's probably not of the most reputable character anyway. So any question you ask him about honesty and integrity is probably going to come from his understanding of receiving naked pictures of you.
So one of the greatest arguments I ever heard about this, the Snapchat thing, and this did not happen to me personally. We were sitting around a setting very similar to this.
So your naked pictures didn't get out.
That's right. Yeah, they're still locked down. But girl falls into the same category, right? Guys sends an inappropriate picture to another guy. Guy screenshots it, and then comes back and tells her, "Oh, sorry, I dropped my phone, and when I grabbed it, I hit the." Somehow I hit the right keys to screenshot the picture.
But I deleted it. Yeah.
Okay. 25 people end up with that picture.
Right.
I accidentally shared it.
And now you got cyberbullying
on the fly. Yeah.
Now you got cyberbullying.
Now you've impacted somebody in a negative state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Snapchat was designed for
sexting
app. Yeah. It was designed to underlie and so text messages, I mean, those don't go away till you delete them. Snapchat, you get so much of a time filter. Even in your chats, you can save the Snapchat chat. You can talk back and forth instead of just sending pictures. You can actually talk back and forth. Yeah, so you can actually save those messages. Mm-hmm. There's and the thing that scares me about Snapchat, I told y'all this morning, the one that scares me the most is TikTok. But the thing that scares me about Snapchat is private stories, where so they post a picture and they put it up on what's called their story. Everybody that follows them on Snapchat can go and see their story, right? Mm-hmm. So then they have a private story. And if just to the naked eye for a parent that doesn't know what they're looking for, they would never know that their child might have a private story. So the private story is designed to only go to certain people at certain times for certain events. Okay, you can set up all of those things. So you take a Snapchat, you send it to your private chat, it's the same people, but only certain people will see it. Only certain people have access to it. That's what scares me the most because you can infiltrate that. You can bring Snapchat gets hacked every day. There was a number of how many times Snapchat accounts get hacked every day, and it's astronomical when you look at it. And what that means is like there's fake profiles that are designed to look like models. I mean, they're designed to look like absolute models, bikini models type deal. And they infiltrate that way through Snapchat. How they do it, I don't know. I can't figure that out. I can't put my thumb on that. Snapchat it's dangerous in its design.
Yeah, so then they can get on there and start talking to an underage kid, whatever. But my thing is with Snapchat, so this is a real challenge, especially for youth ministers and for parents, because one, if I'm a parent, if the photos get deleted, and then I can't go back and I can't hold my son accountable or my daughter accountable and go, okay, what were y'all talking about? Well, it was just silly faces, Dad. We did silly faces with these these masks, filters, and all this kind of stuff. But then there's no accountability. So that's one thing. The second thing is the other challenge for youth ministry is all right, if my kids in my youth group have a phone, generally speaking, I would say 85% of them have Snapchat if they have a phone.
That's a safe number, I would imagine.
But so me, I could send them a group text, all of them. Well, they'll silence that or whatever. Like I thought, okay, I'll text them all and whatever. Well, no, I mean they would rather Snapchat as text. So,
But it's the same medium, right?
right, but however, so I talked to another youth minister about this when I got back into it because I'd been out for 4 years, and so he said, "Hey, parents tell me like, or people warn me like, me as a youth minister, I probably shouldn't be on it." But he's like, if the kids are going to be on it, he's like, I want to have a good influence on it. But here's the thing. All right, so if Ben, for instance, or Bob decides that they're going to get on Snapchat, I started snapping some kids like in the first couple of weeks getting back into youth ministry, just trying to reach them on their level. But I realized real soon, like, Chris, you said this in you were talking about adultery, last week in your sermon, and you were talking about, there's a rule, don't be alone with a woman or whatever.
The lady rule.
Huh?
The lady rule.
Yeah, the lady rule. Don't be alone with one. Well, so let's say that I start snapping one of our young girls or whatever, and it's all positive stuff. How do I ever prove that to their parents if the stuff gets erased? Right. So I can post positive things, but then if I snap a silly picture or something, it gets to them and it gets erased. So essentially, I can't meet them on that level and me have accountability in my life with my wife or with whoever. And there may be other ways or whatever. But so it's a challenge because all the kids have it. I'm choosing not to be an influence on it because there's not any accountability for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been instances where the private story
in Snapchat
have come back to me as the youth minister. Things that I specifically was not supposed to see, like, Wes doesn't know about this.
Yeah.
It's like, so
Wes just got the message.
Yeah, I just got it. Okay, sorry about your luck.
He does.
Yeah, I know it.
Joke's on you.
But you're right. There's zero accountability. There's no way for, if that child were to go back and say, "You'll never believe this Snapchat that Bob sent me. Didn't have his shirt on or something."
Mm-hmm. Right.
How can you refute that?
You can't.
You can't.
And automatically, man, I got a story I'm gonna tell you tonight too, because automatically they have to admit it. We're no matter what, no matter Bob's reputation, anything like that, automatically Bob is called into question.
Right.
And so they have to then separate the situation. Like, I'm gonna tell you the story, and this is a quick one, but I had a twin teacher that taught at my school. His twin brother taught at another school. This is in the 90s, long before any of this stuff. There was two twin girls that was at his brother's school. I'm not going to say his name, but one of those twin girls said the teacher there exposed himself to me. He had tried to get with me, exposed himself to me, and so they immediately suspended him. He was on the newspaper, right? Front page of the newspaper. That's when people read newspapers. Think about this. He's got a twin brother. So not only is he guilty, but his twin brother's guilty because both of them are a small town, right? Yeah. So now these two young ladies, right, both of them are the one that accused him, essentially, because you got two twins, right? It comes to court. It finally, under pressure on the witness stand, it comes out because the whole time, like, his marriage is ruined. They fired him. The whole shooting match, right? The girl finally says, because when the key evidence piece was they went to his house and she said only he had purple underwear. He had purple underwear. They went to his bedroom, sorted through his clothes, found his purple underwear. So when they go to the witness, they immediately charged him. Finally, under pressure, she breaks and said, he'd been over one day and I saw his underwear, and he would not. I kept making it because he said, no, she was making advances with me. He said, how come you didn't tell anybody? If that were the case, he's like, I wanted to preserve her rep. In his thinking, he thought he was going to help this girl. No, this girl was just the Joseph and Potiphar's wife. And he'd been over in his class one day to get some. This is one of the technical classes. And he bends over his underwear, see the top of his underwear or whatever. She remembered his underwear, purple underwear, stick out in your head, right?
For sure.
And so it won't like he said tidy whities or something. He had purple underwear. So now, just think about it. Now, he was completely acquitted, everything like that, but the fallout from it.
That's right.
Is it worth it?
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a mess.
Yeah, and I think, there are several youth ministers that I worked with and we were co-workers with, and they refused to have Snapchat for that very reason. Because there's no way that you could, it disappears.
Yeah, well, for me, and being a law enforcement and being a detective is, you not only work the cases where people are guilty, but you also have to work the cases where people are accused and yet they're still innocent. And so I can't tell you how many people who were preachers, ministers, whatever, that or just regular people who would get accused of something, and then they're coming in and having to take a polygraph test to prove their innocence.
Think if you're a Catholic priest today, and somebody says, one of your parishioners say, he touched me inappropriately.
Yeah, right.
What, do you think those guys have any credibility?
No.
No. Why is that?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So we set ourselves up for failure with this stuff.
That's right. And so my thing is I want to have a big influence with my youth kids, and then I want their parents to be able to have a big influence with their children. And it's like you can hold them accountable on some screen time, and yet you can give them some leeway and say, hey, bud, you get an hour of YouTube a day.
Yep.
You know, he goes over that. Let's hold him accountable.
That's right.
There's no accountability with Snapchat.
No.
And it's just over and over and over again. But yet I want to be an influence to my kids right where they are. If that means McDonald's hamburgers, you know, movies, whatever, laser tag, we'll use anything to teach the gospel with it. But it's like, if I can't hold a standard to where I can prove that things are right, it's a struggle.
Well, there was one particular instance where a youth minister, he had Snapchat, but he refused to Snapchat anybody. He just wanted them to know, hey, I'm on here, so if you put it up there, I can see it. Interesting approach, but still at the end of the day, there's zero accountability there.
Yeah, and you can create a group and snap a group like they had that with the student center,
right?
You know, but and so I kept it for a while and was on Snapchat for our college students, just as a thing. And then every now and then, like I said, you know, I would snap, you know, happy birthday or happy new year or whatever, and then it's like real quick, it's like, this is a danger. And I've got to, for me to have longevity in the ministry, to know that accountability and things are right, it's like, man, that's the devil's playground right there.
That's right. How quick do you end up in the mud?
And you think about it, like our teens, like they're on that more than they're on anything.
Yeah,
it's some challenges. So, Wes, thanks for being on today.
Hey, I appreciate it. You guys are awesome.
And
I
thank
really
y'all
mean
for
that.
tuning in and listening to us. And tune in for the next week. And if you like this is the Unscripted Podcast.
You hit it too early.
Hit the like for us.
Yep. We appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it.
Oh, can I do it again?
Yeah, do it again.
All right. See you guys.
This is the Unscripted Podcast.